Hello everybody and welcome to LRN Diary Editions, the show where I provide the latest previews, reviews and opinion on the latest IRL F1 content. Today we review the Monaco GP. Let's get straight into it. So where do we even start with that drama? We just saw the Monaco GP. It turned out to be quite an exciting race, not for the reasons that we'd expect. Obviously, we didn't get much in the way of overtaking. We did have Gasly putting a couple of moves on the inters on Ricciardo and Zhou, which shows you can overtake if you really do have a huge pace advantage, which he did on those intermediate tyres. But in general, the excitement came from the wet weather, not knowing what was going on, the delays at the beginning of the race, the red flag when Mick Schumacher's put it in the wall. Really just the race director not seemingly knowing what he's doing or when to put the race on, and the teams watching the radars rather than looking at the sky and seeing that it was dry, and us probably having more delays than we needed, which led to us not having enough time to actually finish the race, the race distance that you'd expect. So loads and loads of stuff going on that kept the race really interesting. Not really the racing itself, even though we had some really close racing. You saw Hamilton right up the back of Alonso for ages. At the end, we had Norris close up to Russell, but of course we had the front four at each other's throats essentially in the closing stages of the race, as Leclerc closed on Verstappen right on the back of Sainz right on the back of Perez, as Perez's tyres were really badly graining up, even to the point that Verstappen mentioned it, and he was 2 cars back, that Perez had clearly ruined his tyres. But as we saw with Ricciardo in 2018, it doesn't matter. If you've got bad tyres, you have to be incredibly slow, to the point that you basically let the cars behind you pass on purpose to make a genuine overtake. I think we had Sainz after the race talking about the fact that he just did not have the grip on his rear tyres to get the exit into the tunnel that he needed to get Perez into that braking zone, out of the tunnel and down the hill. So he really stood no chance. The DRS zones were opened eventually. Again, what were the race directors doing there? Why did it take so long for the DRS to open? But anyway, Sainz really couldn't make any inroads. The DRS zone made absolutely no difference to the racing. I don't think we had a single overtake on the back of the DRS zone. Going into the first corner, we did have Hamilton make a move on Ocon, which didn't work, but Ocon did in the end get a 5-second penalty for driving into Hamilton. Kind of a 50-50 there. I think it was still Ocon's corner. Hamilton hadn't actually got in front from what I saw. Maybe you saw different. So I think maybe it was a harsh 5-second penalty. I'm not sure the move was actually on. But anyway, overtaking was definitely hard to come by. We did have the expected incidents with Schumacher obviously putting it in the wall, the state of his car making it look potentially far worse than it actually was. He obviously walked away unscathed, which is fantastic. But yeah, it's other than that, we didn't have many incidents. We had Latifi putting it in the wall under the safety car. We had Stroll putting it in the wall under the safety car. We had Tsunoda just going off, I think, twice in about 5 laps at the first corner and bringing out the yellow flag. So the usual suspects having issues. But I think on the whole, if we focus on the race at the front, because that's where the excitement was, we had the Ferraris versus the Red Bulls, and really an interesting race, a race that came down to pit strategy. And I think what we saw today was that the Ferraris do not have the recent experience of battling at the front. The Red Bulls simply outdid them on strategy. We had the overcut essentially from the Red Bulls to get past the Ferraris. I think if it wasn't for Sainz pushing back on the Ferrari strategy, they were going to bring him onto the Inters as well, we would have seen a Red Bull 1-2. Probably would have seen Perez ordered to let Verstappen pass on as the quicker car, because he probably would have ended up being the quicker car. So that would have been interesting to see what they did. I mean, if Perez would have moved over after what happened in Barcelona. But we didn't get to see that. I'm really happy that we saw Perez win. I think, great guy. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Finally, we get a race that Verstappen has finished and hasn't won, so that's a start. But it was still a Red Bull, was the winning car. But yeah, I think for sure Ferrari threw away the victory. Leclerc's going to be absolutely seething for what's happened today. I think he's been absolutely. I mean, first of all, you had the fact that the strategy was bad. They shouldn't have pitted him onto the inters. You could see the track was drying up to the point that everyone was going to go onto the dries. He just needed to wait out that time and get onto the dries. He could have held the Red Bulls behind him, even if they were coming up at a rate of knots on those inters. He could have held them behind, gone straight onto the dries. Mick Schumacher in the end showed that after a couple laps, the dries came in. That strategy would have been there. In the end, they both went onto the inters, and this was actually Leclerc's second stop at this point. So he got completely screwed over. There was a miscommunication, so he ended up coming in when he should have stayed out, which meant that he got held up in the pit lane while Sainz was pitting for tyres for his first stop. Leclerc ended up on his second stop having to wait while Sainz had his tyres changed. So a complete mess up on all fronts from Ferrari on what should have been an easy 1-2. My view is that actually they had an opportunity with when they were 1-2 at the beginning of the race to use Sainz to back up the Red Bulls and allow Leclerc to make a free pit stop onto the inters. If he'd done that, if they'd asked Sainz to do that and just slow them up, that would have taken away any opportunity for the Red Bulls to do the overcut. Captain hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I was thinking it at the time that what an opportunity they've got for Leclerc to get away, use Sainz to back them up, guaranteeing Sainz still second place. At the end of the day, there's still no overtaking there. If they got the strategy right with Sainz, he still would have secured the second place. It wouldn't have cost Sainz anything, but it would have given them a guaranteed win for Leclerc if they just let him bomb on, get that free pit stop in, and cover any strategy that the Red Bulls could have done. Because once he was on those inters and still in front, he had the quicker car. He could have then, when the dry tyre options came, he would have been on the tyre, he would have already been ahead, and it wouldn't have been a problem. Leclerc gets the win. Sainz could have pitted as well, and he would have been a guaranteed second place, as long as they didn't do something else to mess it up and there wasn't any freak accidents on track, which there weren't. So really, really bad planning during the race by Ferrari, but fair play to Red Bull, putting their experience to the test. I think with Mercedes, the fight they had last year, you had two teams who were just absolutely on it, especially with Hamilton. He's on it. He did similar to Sainz on several occasions where he would overrule the team and tell them what he thinks best. But Mercedes, more often than not, would call it right. So you had a really good battle on track and off track with the strategies between Ferrari and Mercedes last year. Sorry, Red Bull and Mercedes last year. Whereas this year, between the Ferraris and the Red Bulls, I think you're seeing the Red Bulls are just better at calling those strategies on the pit wall. And that's led them to having, again, a better result than Ferraris this weekend. Ferrari should have won this race. No other way to look at it, I think. And they'll know that. They'll know that. And there'll be a lot of discussions and reviewing why that didn't happen into the next few races. But obviously, Monaco is a race upon itself. It's a one-of-a-kind race. It's not really representative of any other track, so it doesn't really tell us much in terms of what's coming in the future races. We've just got this out the way. Fantastic news for Perez, but yeah, a really good drive by him in the end. I'd say to keep the other cars behind, but really you would expect that unless he put it in the wall. But yeah, good last few laps. Hopefully, it excited some people. Personally, I must say I wasn't really excited because it doesn't matter how close they got, no one was going to overtake each other. So it is what it is. But yeah, at least we had some close racing. We had the Alonso train as well that was really close and again led to no overtaking. So it does show that really Monaco is all about the Saturday, other than the incidents, the crashes, and obviously the wet weather brought some jeopardy to the race as well. But as far as the front four go, I think, yeah, Red Bull just simply outthought Ferrari today, and fair play to them. Let's hope that Ferrari can improve their strategy calls moving forward and continue that fight with Red Bull throughout the season. Moving back a bit from the front two teams, you have Mercedes and Norris, basically. I think Norris again got outthought by Mercedes. Mercedes did a great job with Russell on strategy to get Russell in front of Norris. So unlucky for Norris there to lose that position. He only ended up 2/10 behind because he made the extra pit stop onto the fresh mediums, going for the fastest lap, and ended up 0.2 of a second behind Norris. Caught up hugely into the last few laps of the race. But realistically, McLaren, again, similar to Ferrari, should have been in front of Russell regardless. They should have got that strategy right. Then you had obviously Hamilton not having the best race. He's finishing 8th. He must again be really, really frustrated. Just got absolutely caught out by Alonso in that slow car. Again, you can't overtake. You need a huge percentage increase of performance over the car in front to get past, which no one had other than when you had that difference in between the wet and the inters. So again, we didn't see any overtakes, and he got stuck in 8th. And in the McLarens, you had Ricciardo in the other car putting even more pressure on himself by finishing outside the points. Really a nothing race for Ricciardo today, and doing nothing to quell these rumours that he's going to be let go at the end of the season, a year before his contract runs out. I think he's running out of time. I don't know if he's falling out of love with McLaren as well, whether it's going to be a mutual thing that he moves on. That'll be interesting. Will he get another drive? Is he an in-demand driver anymore? I think he could be by the end of the season. We saw even in the Renault that he's still there. That talent is still there when he gets a car that he likes. But it's starting to look like cars that he really gets on with are few and far between. So we'll have to see what comes of that. But hopefully, for Ricciardo's sake, he's a great guy. I hope that he can get it together and prove what a good driver he is for the rest of the season. But if he doesn't, do expect that he will be replaced in the McLaren team, maybe with another up-and-coming driver. We might have like a Ferrari dynamic where you have two young, hungry drivers. I would actually expect that with McLaren. They want someone who's going to come in and want or be able to challenge Norris. I'm not sure that they can. I think it's a bit of a Verstappen scenario in the McLaren. Norris just being completely embedded in the team. Everything is about him, all designed to him now. They have so much faith in him in the future, and they want to retain Norris's talent as a driver. And I think the only way to do that is to give him everything he wants and really back him as their number one driver. So whoever's coming in is going to have a really difficult situation, similar to Perez coming in, Albon, Gasly into those Red Bulls. But again, a fantastic drive by Norris, but really, really difficult days for Ricciardo. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. I think the rest of the grid kind of happened as is. No real excitement. We had Gasly showing what a good driver he is, performing on the inters, doing that strategy call, but still getting caught up and kind of having a bit of a nothing race. And no other real drives of note other than Alonso holding up Hamilton for such an extended amount of time. Ocon's penalty dropping him out of the points. Vettel kind of again having a bit of decent race. You had the sort of usual suspects at the back in Stroll and Latifi crashing into the walls, not really making any moves or really anything of any note in the race. And again, brings into question, are they good enough for Formula One? I think everybody knows Stroll is there because of his dad. But that's okay, that's fine, you can be there for that, but you have to have the talent to back it up to show that that isn't why you're driving for that team, right? No one can just step in. And of course Stroll's a talented driver, but is he of the quality at F1? Is he good enough to be keeping people like the up and coming drivers from F2, Hulkenberg, who's without a drive at the moment as an example? Is he good enough to be keeping these drivers out of the car? My opinion, no. Other people should be in the car instead of Stroll. Same for Latifi. Don't expect Latifi in the Williams next year. We've already seen Nick De Vries test in the Williams, and unless something happens with Hamilton where he actually goes on and just decides, I've had enough, and he goes, I would expect De Vries to take Latifi's place in the Williams next season. I think Latifi's just shown, last season with Russell, this season with Albon, he isn't up to it. Albon's not having the best season. I think we can, today he didn't have the best race, and I think the red hair may go now because that lucky charm seems to have run its course. But certainly, yeah, I'd expect Latifi to be gone before the end of next season. I think the last and key thing to look at from this weekend is the race directors. What were they doing? Why didn't the race start when it was scheduled to? The rain wasn't bad enough not to start it. We had sort of murmurs that, they wanted to make sure that it was safe. If it wasn't safe 20 minutes later, red flag it, bring everybody in, bring them into pit stops on wets. If that isn't enough, you can red flag the event. There was no reason not to start the race at the go time of 2 o'clock GMT. That should have happened. And yeah, if it was 15-20 minutes later, at least we've had our 15-20 minutes racing, and we might have actually ended up seeing the full race distance today. That it should have got underway. I'm not complaining about the way the race went. I think in the end it was pretty exciting, and it probably ended up, other than the fact that we didn't get the full race distance, probably as it would have been. But regardless of that, they should have had, this is a sport people take part in because it's dangerous, and that we have wet tires for a reason. And sometimes I think that gets lost. It wasn't wet enough to not go racing at 2 o'clock GMT. So yeah, I think it should have happened. And it didn't. They need to again review why. We know that these race directors are not experienced in F1. Obviously, we know we have Michael Massey, and I think Michael Massey did a decent job on the whole. But of course, we know what issues led to him losing his position. But before Michael Massey, we obviously had Charlie Whiting, someone that Michael spent a lot of time with. And we never talked about the race directors when Charlie Whiting was in charge. We knew what he was going to do. We knew that he was in control of the situation, and he called everything right. So I think those days are long gone. I think we need someone long term to come in and really take the reins and show that they've got real control of the races, the rules, and take some of the focus off of the race directors, because some of the decision making has not only been bad, it's been slow. We saw Ocon get a penalty for something that happened, it felt like an age ago, the incident with Hamilton, by the time they'd actually given it to him. So God knows why, between the race director and the stewards, it's taking so long to get through everything. Let's hope they can improve as they gain more experience through the season, and maybe whichever race director they deem to be performing on a more consistent basis will get the job full time, and they'll get rid of this two-person position, because I thought it would be two people at every race, but actually they're sharing it and doing one. So what does that gain? Just pick the best person for the job and give them every race. I don't. What's the benefit of having two? Because I thought they'd be there to correct each other's decisions, but again, that doesn't seem to be the case. So hopefully long term they'll gain their experience, they'll understand the mistakes they're making, and we'll get back to a place where we had with Charlie Whiting, where you just trusted everything he did. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. But I think it builds well into the rest of the season. It was good to see, obviously, the front two teams fighting so closely. Mercedes clearly not quite there yet. And hopefully other teams can join the fight towards the end of the season as these cars get upgraded. But it does seem it is just going to be Ferrari, Red Bull for the time being. Track dependent, whether Mercedes can get into the race, but we shall certainly see. But the midfield fight, I think, will continue to be awesome for the rest of the season. Maybe Mercedes will be that clear third team, but behind them, every single track I think is going to be different in terms of what team finishes where. So let's look forward to that over the next few races. But I think driver of the day, I'm just going to give it to Perez, because I think Perez did a great job. He's won the race, and no one really made any clear moves, overtakes, or anything other than Gasly with those couple of moves on the inters. I think Perez deserves driver of the day for winning the race, seeing it out, not buckling under the pressure of having signs right up his chuff for an extended period of time. So well done to Perez, driver of the day, and we look forward to the next race. But let me know in the comments below what your thoughts of the race were. What do you think of the things we've spoken about so far? Who was your driver of the day? And what do you think of the position of the race directors? How do you think that should work moving forward? Or anything else that you've got any thoughts on? But if you like the video, hit like, and we will be back soon with more content in the coming weeks and coming races. So make sure you hit subscribe to be notified of all future uploads. But for today, I'll thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great day. Goodbye.